Oh, here we go.
All right.
Here we go. Act natural.
All right.
Oh
Okay.
my
So
goodness.
I normally eat Mexican candies um in my everyday routine. This
What
is this is normal.
what kind specifically?
So I believe this is a foyatine is what she said these were. Um I forget the chocolate is definitely Mexican. It's a Mexican recipe. But she was from Texas. The person who sold these to me at Cubes is
Mm-hmm.
from Texas and was only in town for a little bit. And yeah, that's all I really needed to know before I bought. It's like, oh, there's chocolate and it's special. Okay, all
You're
right.
like, I'm automatically into this. Yeah, I think she said it was like crushed up crepe.
A crush, yes,
Yeah, and
yeah,
then kind of doused in different chocolates. It was pretty good. Um, well, first of all, thanks for chatting with me, Jose
absolutely.
Amador.
Lovely chatting with you, Lori Yama. Oh my god. Oh my god, that just happened. I completely
we're
brain farted there.
we're keeping that.
Yamagawa?
Heck yeah.
No, it was right.
Yeah.
I was afraid that I was gonna get the Gawa wrong. I knew it was.
No.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
You already fucked this up.
And you're gonna keep that too.
Well, I mean, I don't have any fancy editors or anything like that. But I don't know. Like ever since I met you, I think I just started to mentally in my mind call you Mr. Amador, just very endearingly.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I like that a little better than the guy with Mr. Potato Head on his neck or whatever you. No, you just call me Mr. Potato Head. You
No,
called him.
I called him Groucho Marx, the tattoo behind your right ear,
Right.
Mr. Potato Head. I forget why you have him there in the first place.
Do you want the full?
Let's go for it. As
Okay.
as we eat some cubes. What would you call this? Not confections, like
Well, this is specifically is a tres leches cake.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Tres leches cake from Cubes, cookies and cream and dulce de leche flavor,
Mm-hmm.
and some high art chocolate.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I think we should announce what we're about to bite into as we do so. You're going
Mm-hmm.
into the dulce de leche.
Heck yeah.
All right. I'll go into the cookies and cream.
All right. The story of Groucho Marx begins.
Okay. So one of my first directorial efforts in Seattle. Um, this would be my second one. I had gotten at the time I was like really head over heels in love with the Marx Brothers. I was also looking for projects for myself. Yeah, you approve of the dulce de leche.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go in, and I've had the cookies and cream before, but I know that this is gonna be orgasmic.
Feels brand new every time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's check it
And it
out.
is orgasmic. Oh my god.
Let's see.
So I was looking for a project because, as I came to find out about Seattle, I get a lot of lips. Oh, you're talented. Oh, you this, that, and the other. But rarely do I get asked aboard projects.
Around like what year ish was this?
I want to say this is the time of the full production was around 97, 98.
Okay. It's like 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Holy crap. Wow.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you to remind me of of times gone by. Um, I had done a one act version for something that was called Beer Theater, which was basically a bunch of theater hooligans would get around, buy a keg or two, charge $2 at the door for you sell cups for $2 a piece,
Mm-hmm.
and then they had free access to the beer, and then people just put on things like Star Trek episodes. Jennifer Jasper as Captain Kirk was a thing. Um, Joe Zavadil, all the King's Elephant people. Kevin, I don't think Kevin Kent was involved in any of those. I ramble.
There's
Um,
some familiar names that popped up so
yeah,
far, yeah.
yeah. Basically, back when theater was just an anything goes kind of a proposition in Seattle. You had these little things that would happen. and great showcase for talent. And it was because it was inexpensive. A lot of people just showed up. Um, and
Well, people that weren't necessarily on the inner rings of the community, or like Seattle theater people.
the people from anywhere.
Okay.
And back then the lines between theater and music and art and dance were really permeable. People would cross over, not exactly willy nilly, but they would be like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I'll go check that out." And so you had these little melting pots of like arts going on, and that usually brought in just people. This was in Belltown too, so people who were just there for things you went to Belltown for, dive bars and that sort of thing, were just looking for like, sure, that sounds fun. What the hell? Let's go in there. Um, I'm trying to think of what else. Anyway, I had written a short little 20-minute thing. The idea being, what if the Marx Brothers were alive and well, and still producing material? That was the basis for the show. It went over well. I had Tina Rowley now. Back then she was Tina Kuntz involved. Who else was in that first run? Yeah, she was my Groucho, my Chico. Tina Rowley was my Chico. Um, Greg Delaney was my Harpo.
Oh,
I had
nice.
Patrick Bromeling as a Foghorn Leghorn type. Al Wilkie was in there. Who was my I who I'm trying to remember who my Groucho was for that. It may have been Al Wilkie.
I
I
love how you can't remember that, and that's what this story.
It kind of hinges around.
Right.
All right, so it went well. That production went kind of really well. It got really good feedback, and I thought, well, what the hell? Let's go ahead and turn that into a full play,
Mm-hmm.
with an intermission and everything. And a couple years later, I had that, and I had a friend named Doug Cavadoki. He and I had done a handful of open mics at a place called Beatniks. Oh, wow. Which was where Man Ray used to be. This was a club on Pike
Mm-hmm.
and Belmont.
So it
Ish.
sounds like Capitol Hill.
Yeah, this was Capitol Hill.
Okay.
It's now condos, of course, like everything else on Capitol Hill. It's now a condo.
I wish I could record your face with that comment just now.
What did it look like?
Just like half realization, half concern about the future, and just like, oh yeah, that's a thing now.
That's
Yep.
definitely a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he and I had done a handful of those, and for whatever reason, Doug agreed to co-produce this thing with me, and we had gotten the alibi room. We had gotten the basement of the alibi room, um, really cheap, if not free. Um, So okay, so we go about producing this thing. I cast the show. Um, oh God, all right. So the show was, let's put it this way: the pre-production and going into the production of the show, could everything that could possibly go wrong with it definitely went wrong. Not just that, but I definitely stacked the deck against myself. Um, I had a team of people. I had a costume designer that I didn't know that well. I had a set designer that I didn't know that well. Um, Thought I would find a carpenter in time for things to build a set. Um, and both the costume person and the set designer just flaked.
Mm.
Nah, just completely went away. Basically, most of my design team just went away. I did manage to find a carpenter, but he had never done any stage work before, so he had no idea what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. He was just not prepared to do it for the stage.
Right.
All right, so that aspect of the pre-production was just basically shot to shit. I'm rehearsing during all of this. for whatever fucking reason, God, um, and no, the reason was that because I had written it, I did not feel comfortable being the person who directed it.
Okay.
But I also wanted to direct it because I knew what I wanted. So in order to circumvent that and not be suspicious, oh God, oh Jesus, oh yeah, I'm gonna go on the record with this.
Oh, is this the good part?
This is one of many good parts in this thing. I went by a false name. I completely made up a name that I told the cast that I went by. I named myself after one of my favorite, not one of my favorite, my favorite fictional character, Erwin Maurice Fletcher. Fletch by short, which of course is a series of movies with Chevy Chase and a book series, etc. and so forth. I went by this name. I went by Fletch for the entire rehearsal process. So,
What do you mean by that?
the cast called me Fletch. The cast knew me as Fletch. They knew that there was a playwright named Jose who they never met. Oh
you
yeah,
didn't know the cast prior to casting them.
yeah. There was nobody in that cast I knew.
They had no idea that you were Jose Amador in real life.
No, no.
This is a
No.
good part. Right.
Yeah. In that cast, Alex Samuels, um, my friend Sean. Well, I guess he knew. He had to have known. But he went along for the ride.
Okay.
I think he understood my reasoning and just kind of went along for the ride. I told you Alex Samuels. Who else was in it? Oh, Litza Dermusis, who is now a very well known writer, essayist for like Nerve, and she's been written in Post. She has written in the New Yorker, has a couple of books. She was the person who broke the Alex Sherman Alexi story.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was in my cast.
Wow.
as a love interest for the Margaret Dumont character. Marx Brothers heads who happened to run across this were like, "What? You did what?" Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so rehearsals are going. That's all happening. I'm still finding nobody to replace any of the design team. I'm kind of like taking that on by myself. Um, have the carpenter build, and so the Marx Brothers are known for their farces. They're basically farcical material. So I had written a scene with like three doors, so it had a door slamming scene in the middle of it all. So not only were the doors supposed to be brought in, they were also supposed to be stored in the basement of the alibi room, which is, if you had basically taken this room and added maybe 15 feet and then put it all along one way.
So we're talking like maybe 15 plus another 15?
Yeah.
It's like 30
30 feet.
Okay.
Really wide and narrow. Not wide and narrow, but narrow and long is what I mean to say.
Got it. Okay.
A cast of 12, 13.
They're all calling you Fletch.
They're all calling me Fletch. It is August. There's no air conditioning in the basement of the alibi room.
Mm-hmm.
And the managerial staff at the alibi room had never dealt with a theatrical production before. So they did not know that we needed a space to store the costumes. They did not know that the set pieces were going to take up space. The doors they operated, but they were bulky and heavy. They took forever to move. They were in the way. They were a safety hazard.
Mm.
I didn't take any of this into consideration. I was completely caught off guard. And so during Tech Week, the manager of the bar comes down and sees that they had these tall steel and ceramic or marble tables permanently implanted, but they got in the way, so we moved them. Manager came down and saw that and flipped out. We are 2 days away from opening. The guy's flipping out, yelling at me in front of the cast. Oh, it was a huge, huge fucking blowout. Finally, get done getting yelled at by him. He goes off. He threatens, basically threatens, we're gonna cancel the show. Fuck you. You don't move my shit. Get out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. We're gonna rehearse. Get to rehearsal, and the cast is having problem with the doors, the bulky doors. Just moving them. It's like not just moving them because they were when they were backstage, they had to step over shit and do it real fast, and it was dark back there, so it was like, no, this is crazy. You're not. We're not. No, no.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that like right in the middle of a run, and things had been going well up until that point, and I, like an idiot, fucking lost it as well, and I lost it at them, and I fucked up. Um, and things were never straight with that cast anytime after that. Lita's cool. Lita and I are cool. Alex Samuels and I are cool, but he will never. He has basically said to me that he will never ever work for me. He will never work with me as a director.
Mm.
We can probably work together as castmates, but I don't know. I've yet to broach that subject with him. Um, Somehow the show broke even. Somehow, I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but
Have you been to the Alibi since? Just as like a,
yeah, no, yeah, I have.
go grab a drink
Yeah, no,
sometime.
nobody there remembers. The manager dude is no longer there.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Turnover
yeah,
at the restaurant industry is ridiculous.
yeah. Got
So
it.
yeah, nobody
Yeah.
there knows me. I felt safe about showing my face there again. Um,
And
ah,
this was some time ago too. I
this
have to
was,
remember. Yeah.
yeah. This was like you said, 20 years ago.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yes. um, Things that also came out of that show. The My favorite briefest slam of a review came from that show. Matt Richter, man, Matt Richter came to see it. He was working for The Stranger at the time. Probably the most intelligent reviewer. Critique. He was actually, I would call him a critic. I would not a reviewer. That paper has ever had, and he dismissed the whole production in one sentence. Um, Too many people with far too much time doing far too little. That was a review. Period. End. Boom. Done.
Fuck.
Yeah. Brutal. Just brutal. Um, People have left town immediately after that show. People left acting after that show. Uh, yeah. Yeah. No, that show was just a monumental fuck up. And I eventually came out. I eventually came out as like, yes, that I'm the same person as I am the writer and the director. I've been doing this for this reason.
When?
After the show had opened,
So like during the run, or like
I
after
that
just.
detail I can't quite remember. I
Okay.
don't know. You would have to ask Alex Samuels, and
Mm.
he'd probably give you the most cynical answer to. Oh yeah, no, he fucked up. He told us right away. Instead of keeping his mouth shut for 2 weeks. Um, oh no, that was a full run. I put those people through hell. Oh God. So in commemoration of all of that trauma, like about a year afterwards, a year or two afterwards, I was still dealing with the repercussions of that production. I'm still learning all the lessons that I could possibly learn from that production. And I felt I needed a way to just like remind me of that entire fiasco, to things to avoid, things to learn from, things to just like, yeah, no, this happened in your world. So, um, and at the time, tattoos were starting to catch on as a thing,
Okay.
and then most of the people who I knew who had tattoos were veterans, specifically of the Vietnam War, and I hubristically equated that production to my own personal Vietnam.
Any reason for like the placement behind the ear?
I wanted a place that was out of the way, and so I
Okay.
could still be cast. You'd have to be looking for it. Um, yeah,
It's right near the brain. It's right near the ears
yeah,
that we listen with.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the story of the Groucho Marx tattoo.
Man, All this time, I had no idea. So this is a little bit of ignorance on my part, but maybe helpful for others too, if anyone listens to this thing. Difference between a reviewer and a critic.
A critic is a little bit more knowledgeable about the art form they are talking about, is aware of at least some of the context, is aware that there's probably more behind a production than just putting people together or putting them in pretty costumes and a pretty set and entertaining the people. So that they take those considerations into effect. They'll do a little research on the playwright, they'll do a little research on the play itself, they'll do a little research on what is being talked about, and weigh that against the production that they see. Um, Consider whether or not, you know, if there's a change between what they see and what they know to be true about a production, they consider if there's an intended message there or not. So a critic is actually a really weighty position, one to be taken seriously. Um, and it's rare that you come across those. And I think that's not just Seattle. That's a nationwide shortage. A reviewer, on the other hand, none of those. I mean, they may care about some of those things. They might talk about some of those things, but really, they're all about like whether they liked it or not,
Mm-hmm.
and whether this aspect was pleasing or not, or whether it was worth the time or not. If their date had a good time, if they got laid out of the production, if they these are all things that that paper I mentioned earlier are known to actually write about, you know, when they talk about a show.
Kind of like arts versus arts and crafts, kind of a
Yeah, mentality. We're talking about it in that way.
right.
Yeah. Uh, one of one of my favorite, I say pejoratively, reviewers in town is known for writing a review not even 2 hours after he has seen a production. Um, and you wonder just how much thought went into that. If he was just interested in getting it out and, you know, being the first one to weigh in on a topic. And given the number of typos involved,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
yeah, yeah, um, I'm wondering if that's a much bigger consideration than the show they're producing. Does that answer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I have one more origin question.
yeah,
How'd you get the name the Beige One? I just, yeah, while we were talking, I was like, yeah, I want to ask him that today.
sure. Hanging out with Greg Delaney.
Okay.
You know Greg?
I don't think I do.
Okay, all right.
No.
He and his then wife were friends of mine. Um, and after that hell of a production, no, but he was in the good production. He was in the that first production. After that, I really became fast friends with a lot of those people, and he and his wife and I would hang out a fair amount, and we were talking, and something came up, and I glibly called them Whitey, one of them Whitey, and he was like, "Well, whatever, Beigey," you know, just coming up with that, and that we laughed about that, and everything else came after that. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
the beige one came from that.
All right. Awesome. Well, yeah, I definitely want to talk about how you're multidisciplinary today,
Okay.
right? As a writer, both as a critic, I mean, screen, theater, the acting side, the directing side. I think we'll dabble into each of those things.
Okay.
Maybe first off, as a director,
Mm-hmm.
I got to go see two sisters and the piano
Yeah.
over at the Shmee. I messaged you saying you made me cry. Thanks, asshole.
Yay! My
Yay!
actors and I did my job. Did our job.
Absolutely. I mean, like, brilliant cast of four, small, intimate space at the Shmee. Um, I guess for me, I mean, like, there's enough out there about it. What I want to know is, like, if like there are any memories that have stuck with you from like that rehearsal process, working with the actors or the design team, stage management, put,
Omar and
putting
I.
a plug in for the stage managers out there.
Well, Omar Forrest was he and I were put together very early on in the process, and it was quick. It was a process of like figuring out, oh wait, you're a lot like me. Oh, okay, these things are I know how to approach you now. We It took us a while to get there, so there was a little bit of a flinty kind of like, well, we're not quite getting along, but you know, this is working for, and yeah,
Because you mirrored yourself too
I
much?
think so. I think that that was the deal.
Interesting.
Yeah. He and I, of course, now are getting along pretty well. Oh wow, thinking about the cast, with like Aviona, who played the younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with her, it was I had specifically hoped to cast Afro Latino people in the show in general, but if nothing else, if I could at least have that happen with the sisters. Um, and I had already kind of had a half commitment out of Kiki or Makisha. Um, I'll call her Kiki. She goes by Kiki. I just remembered her burlesque name, which Cheeky Cheeky Rodriguez, I think is her. Fuck, why am I going off of that? Anyway,
Oh no,
so
like
I already had to have yeah.
Cheeky Rodriguez,
I
catch a
think
show around
I
town.
think her last name is Rodriguez,
Okay.
but I'm not 100% sure about that. Anyway, she and I had worked in Black Like Us, and I knew that I wanted to work with her again. So I about a year ago when I was proposing this for the Shmi, I saw her on the street and go, "Oh, I have this thing coming up. Are you free? Are you available? Because I want you in it." So I knew that I had her likely. I likely had her in my back pocket, and I think once she read the piece, she was going to be like, "Okay, yeah."
Mm-hmm.
So I needed somebody to go along with her, and um, initially I wasn't getting any interest, any bites from any Latinx actors out there. So I lost it and ranted on Facebook about like, hello, I'm a person of color directing this show.
I fucking
And
shared that post, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you remember? So yeah, I was just kind of angry. It was like, why? A lot of people in this city like to complain. I think there's no opportunity, this, that, or the other. It's like, well, here's one on a freaking platter. The director is Latinx, this, that, and the other, and you're still not showing up. What the hell? You can't complain about this shit and then not actually do something when the opportunity is there. But that's a whole different rant. Anyway, Aviona shows up. Thanks to Eddie DeHace, who was working with her in Silhouette at Annex. Eddie pushed Aviona to come audition for me, and she came in and killed it. So that's a memory right there. Yeah,
Aviona, her subtle facial expressions are very telling.
yeah,
That hit me during the performance for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was really fun to follow.
yeah. It was fun to work with her on all of that,
Uh
to
huh.
fine tune a lot of those little things. Yeah, yeah. And she was a very intelligent performer, always asking questions. And I tend to, I mean, I know my beans, I know what I'm getting into, I know what it is that I want, but formulating answers does not come to me on the spot, you know.
Well, this is a fun exercise today,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
then.
yeah. So she would challenge me a lot. And, it was always a worthwhile challenge. It was never, I never felt like it was masturbatory on her part. It was like we were trying to get at something specific with that character. So that's my memory is seeing her audition and thinking, oh my God, finally, exactly what I'm looking for. Here it is. And she killed it. She just killed it, and she looked great for the role. She fit right in. And then when she and Kiki started working together, it was immediately a sisterly relationship between the two of them, and so that was a very heartening thing to see. Um, with Roger and Joshua, Roger was specifically with Roger, it was just how willing he was to go into all this stuff. His is not the most. He played Lieutenant Portuondo.
And
Um,
the guys each played, I think, a couple characters, right?
no, Portuondo is just Portuondo all the way throughout.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the other guy, um, he played a militia guard at the beginning, and the piano tuner later on.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And with Portuondo, it was he that's not an easy character to play, and it's a very thankless little role to play. And especially these days, one of the things that would freak about with that show is like, okay, this is supposed to be a believable love story, and right off the bat, the guy's behaving in ways that modern America just will not stand. He is hitting on her. His first comment to the sister is, "You are absolutely beautiful." Immediately after she says, "What the fuck is going on with this?" he replies with, "You are absolutely gorgeous." And then,
Kiki's character.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that that's gonna get a lot of cringe. And Christine Blasey Ford is happening during a Blasey Blasey.
I think Blazy.
I think it's Blasey.
I
Let,
think.
let, let me ask the roommates back there. Hey, smart asses. No, they're not listening. All right.
Now they are.
Yeah. Christine Blasey or Blasey Ford? They're just
I've always said Blasey.
Blasey.
Yeah, but I have a feeling it's Blazy.
Okay. just trying to get a name on that.
It's Blazy.
Blazy.
I'm almost certain.
Okay.
Yeah, Christine Blazy for it. Not
Yeah.
Blasey. That's.
Well, no, that's what I thought too, though.
And I'm that person that will always make it sound a little bit less American. Just,
So which way would you go then?
If I were reading it, I'd go with Blasey, but I think I've heard Blazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's happening at the same time that this production is running.
Right.
And so already tensions are pretty high, and this still has to be a believable relationship. This still has to be one that you actually could kind of see. Still has to be something that they can invest in. And Roger just dove into it. It took some tinkering, but when we finally hit it, it really resonated, and it came from his being vulnerable, just being as vulnerable as possible in scenes that kind of required it. He starts expressing his interest in her story. That has to be like he's actually expressing, he's opening himself up to to her at that point, and he just went for it in general.
I mean, I don't know. It's a small theater, right? But I definitely felt like that level of intimacy that they were portraying up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you felt it.
You could feel it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. The rehearsal between Kiki and Roger, with our intimacy coach, Chessa Betancourt. Um, that watching them build that scene, the taking the clothes off, that they finally get it on scene.
I didn't realize that there was an intimacy coach. Like I read through the program and
Yeah.
everything, and okay.
Yeah. She also choreographed all the dance inspired moments in the thing.
Okay.
So she works with the Heron Ensemble. She is a co-founding member of that theater group, and they had done a production a couple of months prior that involved a lot of really intense, intimate scenes with each other, and it was one of those moments. Is like that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. Who did that? Oh, her, of course. And she and I had run in. She auditioned. In an alternate universe, Chessa and I forget the other actress's name would have played those two roles. Would have played the sisters in the show. And she agreed, and she came, and she led them through that exercise. And watching them build that intimate lovemaking scene was that was another touchstone for me out of that production. And then Joshua, just to complete the roster. For me, it was finding out that he was ticklish, that he was actually literally ticklish, and in the script that there's a scene
Okay,
that he has to be tickled. That was something. But it was watching him work with Aviona,
Uh-huh.
in particularly in that scene of just finding ways of connecting with each other, and him being with her, and still struggling with falling in love in a restrictive society and having the representation of authority in the same room. Watching him build all of that was it, that's something that I'll take with me as well.
Hmm.
These are really long answers to your questions. I hope you don't mind.
No, it's better than me like trying to pull stuff, right? I think
Sure.
some people are a little bit, I don't know if I'm not gonna say shyness because you can say a lot and
Mhm.
still be shy,
Mhm.
right? Just that you can avoid having to answer certain things. No, but this is great.
Here, let me get some more sugar.
Yes.
Yeah. That traditional is no. This is the dulce de leche. That's
Yeah.
really really good.
So good. And please dive into this chocolate.
How is it?
I like it.
All right. Mm.
That'd be more review than critique.
Ah.
Um,
We're talking chocolate though.
let me see. So, and this is before we. Let me see. I mean, we might touch on theater a little bit more here, but before we kind of make the exit, I just want to know. I mean, you've spent some time here. Obviously, we're talking about productions from like 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
like current pulse, Seattle theater scene. What's the most potent criticism you think you would have right now in terms of like maybe what you would want to see more of, what you would want to see less of, or just like a critical change that you would like to see take place?
Specifically for the theater scene.
What else were we thinking of?
I mean, I could go bigger picture into like the city itself. Um, um,
I mean, like they're gonna tie into each other, right?
in a sense,
So I'm
yeah.
open to it. Yeah.
For the scene itself, I'm starting to see this. Is react to the times around you. I don't need to see another light comedic, sci-fi genre piece about a quirky person or other figuring out that if they're themselves, things will be great. And I've seen that narrative. I've seen that story. We're living in completely and absolutely fucked up times right now. React to that. Give me theater that speaks to that.
Mm-hmm.
Give me, if not necessarily Trump, give me something else. Um, Talk about work conditions. Talk about. You were about to say something.
No, just agreeing with the Trump statement
Yeah.
because it's not just Trump,
It isn't just Trump.
right?
Here in Seattle, we have the entire Jeff Bezos mentality of like, give me what's. It's a very libertarian mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Give me what's mine and fuck you. And you want me to help you? Why should I help you? I'm giving you jobs, aren't I? That's not good enough. Well, then, fuck, I'm gonna pull out. I'm gonna go threaten to move to another city. Oh, now you bowing down to me. It's the entire relation. Give me something that speaks to that. Give me something that speaks to gentrification, like specifically gentrification. Um, I don't waste my fucking time. And specifically as a critic,
Uh-huh.
don't have me come to some bullshit and expect me to be all gung ho. Oh, this is really happy, funny shit. No, no, no. My time is worth something, and if you're not gonna take the time to treat my intelligence with the respect it deserves, then fuck you. I'm not writing about your fun little piece escapist thing, which there's definitely a place for, but you already have your audience. Your audience is already going to come to you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need me blowing smoke up your ass for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's my criticism for the theater scene right now.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, it's I don't have to say, oh, I'll be honest. I think it's just a fact that, like, I've been removed for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But, just I still hear stories about folks putting on a show where, the audience is going to leave with a big question mark. And, like, the creators might say, oh, well, that's the point. You create your own meaning from this, I don't even think you can call it absurdity, because that has intention behind it, right?
Mhm.
From this stuff that we're putting up. And I mean, you used this word earlier, it's like pre-masturbatory of them to do that.
Yeah.
And they'll still kind of turn their noses up and call it high art, right?
Yeah.
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 And then I also kind of wonder, let's just talk about white people for a second. We do it on Messenger all the time.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's see who we...
I laugh because my roommate Charles and I get into this topic a fair amount, and I'm curious to hear what he'll have to say. Well, we talk about aspects of white people.
If you don't mind being posted online, you're free to jump in.
Oh no, I don't think I could add anything of that.
But I'll be curious to see what you have to say about what I'm about to say later on.
Okay, then I won't be bashful about in the kitchen doing what I'm doing.
All right.
Okay.
But I will be eavesdropping.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting because I reflect on almost exactly 5 years ago, you and I sitting at Espresso Vivace on Broadway in Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Talking, and keep in mind, like, Obama was still president then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people felt relatively safe, or, I mean, just, we weren't necessarily...
We weren't under threat, yeah.
We were quiet, as people of color and different oppressed people, we were still kind of quiet about confiding in each other about certain things.
Yeah.
The wokeness, I don't like using that word myself, but like, you know, the wokeness factor among white people, I don't think was quite there, right?
Are you using it? Let me define how you're using it.
Yeah.
Are you using it with quotation marks, or are you saying like the level of awareness in the woke people?
Both. Totally both.
Okay.
Because I think that, like, you know, there are two flavors of it.
Okay.
Like, folks who realize it, oh shit, my friends, people that I don't know, just other freaking human beings, they're in trouble right now, we gotta do something. And then there's the quote-unquote wokeness factor of, hey, I'm a good ally, right?
Right.
Pat me on the back for it. And I think that, like, 5 years ago, you and I were having a conversation over chocolate like we are today.
Like we're doing today.
Yeah, exactly. Thinking, like, you know, how much of Seattle is, you know, I don't know what the correct order is here, white liberal people or liberal white people, probably the latter, that have good intentions. And that's kind of the extent of it, right? But the moment that there is criticism or, like, you know, self-critique involved, it's like hands up, like I'm gonna back out of this because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I feel like just kind of Seattle culture is one that is a little bit more politically correct, and like, you know, once things get uncomfortable, then we kind of exit the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where was I going with that? Okay, so when we talk about good allyship, right?
Okay.
How much of it do you still see as, you know, maybe white people wanting to host a space and create platform, but then also still participate in it, rather than like maybe taking that step back and just kind of allowing folks to take up that space that they're hosting?
How much am I seeing of that?
Yeah. It's kind of a specific question.
It is. I'm seeing a bit of both. Like what happened at the Shmee after the artistic director. How much were you aware of the fiasco that happened at the Shmee last year in 2017?
Like a pea-sized amount.
Okay. Let me see if I can keep this concise. Not managing director, artistic director has connections from up north, Edmonds and Driftwood Players, those guys up there. He has a couple of playwright friends. They have written this thing that's about internet dating.
Mm-hmm.
They are of age. They're boomers. Let's categorize it that way. They're boomers. They send this play. He's about to produce it. They're having a casting call, and the company uses the casting list, the character list from the play itself. the play itself has stereotypes aplenty. You know, they don't use phrases like welfare queen, but they may as well have.
Okay.
Okay. That describes all of these different actors, including people of color. Um, and I'm fuzzy as to how exactly this got out into the public. I hear several different conflicting conspiratorial type stories about what went on. All I know is that that casting call went out unedited, unaltered, and created a big stir. Coming on the heels of the brouhaha at TPS, people were already in high dudgeon mode, and they reacted the way the internet reacts to just about anything controversial these days, with like, oh, that person's a demon, or he this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. It got ugly really fucking fast. And the AD, instead of sticking it out and saying mea culpa, I will work on figuring this out, and let's bring in all these conversations. He just issues an apology, the typical apology you would expect, and quits. Just steps out. So the company's response to that is to bring in Wayne Raleigh, and his response was to basically, well, let's open this up for the people, and that's how this season ended up. He never stepped in to say, let me have a role in all of this. He just programmed a really diverse season. You know, you had My Piece, but you also had a restoration comedy rewritten for a trans cast. You had the story of a hip hop, an origin story of hip hop
Mm-hmm.
with largely Latino cast. You had She Kills Monsters, a D&D adventure comedy about a Korean woman trying to figure out her dead sister that's also trans and drag and all these other things and mixed in there. So it's a really diverse season. That's an example of people just stepping out of the way and letting people of color take over and do their thing and showing that this actually has value.
Mm-hmm.
This voice matters. This is why people should care. Um, and just about everything else has been somebody who's like, yeah, here's it is, and let's do something. Um, man, I don't know. I'm seeing a bit of both, I guess, is the short answer to all of that. I think of the two, I like the second option better. I like them just creating the space and allowing people of color to come in and present
Mm-hmm.
without direct intervention, if that's the word that I'm looking for.
I kind of like the word participation
Yeah,
because we want to feel like we're contributing, and a lot of the times it's like by having your thumbprint on something
yeah,
as opposed to just here it is, here's your space to do whatever the fuck you want with it,
yeah.
right?
And I
So,
appreciate that here it is.
yeah.
I think that takes a little bit more trust. Um, Here it is with like, here's the organization beneath it as well. Like, here's the promotion material.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Here's
yeah.
the support. Like we're gonna fully support the production.
But otherwise, it's all you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to your writing,
Yeah.
I mean, like I know that you write. I mean, you know, we could talk all day too about El Hijo Pródigo,
Yeah.
or we could talk about your work for the Seattle Star, some of your screen work. I saw a work called Bienvenidos a White Center, which I would love to track down and see
Oh, you
sometime.
haven't seen it?
I don't even know what it's well, I mean, like, kind of lightly know what it's about, but I haven't seen it. Actually, I think it's a couple years old, right?
It's a couple years old. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me see. We'll talk while we're talking. I'll see if I
Yeah.
could find it.
That'd be fantastic. Even though I don't really like horror films, I think I might be able to stomach this.
It's not heavy on gore.
Okay. So I was just wondering, I mean, like, you're a writer in many different forms. Like, does any single one feel like most at home to you?
Um, I guess the solo writing for solo is most at home. I like writing fiction or drama. Um, that is I would put that second in the scheme. It's a multi-character drama.
Mm-hmm.
That's quickly become a habit of mine. And then I would go into the nonfiction art stuff that I've been doing for the Star. That's I would like to say that that's kind of second nature by now, but given the lapse it's been since the last thing I wrote on there in that capacity, um, it's not so second nature. It still work for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's either I give up or I give up on a thing that I've started, or um, I just don't feel I'm equipped to finish the product. That it's going to be subpar. So continuing to practice at that, because I do find that really rewarding when I do finish something. The pieces I did last year on the dance world, I had a lot of fun with.
Those are ones I read.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And every word counts.
Yeah.
Every word is super rich, and I was like, I wish I could do that. Just have it be so saturated in value. I mean, like, just some of your screen work as an actor. Jose and the Hawk.
Yeah, that's about to come out.
Right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw like the hard copy DVD covers, and you look really good in like comic form, by the way.
Thank. I don't know. Yeah. Have you seen the Beige PI stories?
No.
There's I'll send you a link so you can take a look at that. But yeah, my friend Joe Walk. Have you met? You haven't met Joe.
Mm-mm.
He left before you came on the scene. He's back in town now. He has written a story for this fictional beige private detective character every year for my birthday, and he and his wife got together and created an actual. There's an actual little book, and then they hired one of those artists to create a comic. So there's now issue number 1 of Beige PI out there in the world.
And you're like, is it you?
It's basically me in comic book form, cracking cases. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's silliness. So yeah. No, so screen work. So what about the screen work you were asking about?
I don't know. It's a little bit more open ended than anything. No targeted questions. I mean, in both environments, right?
Yeah.
You're under heavy lighting. You've got people watching what you're doing. Sometimes it's an audience. Sometimes it's a film crew. Which one makes you more uncomfortable?
I wouldn't define. I guess I don't feel as comfortable doing it under the lights with people watching with a video camera.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable with the video camera quite yet. I still feel a little self-conscious. It's not quite so natural as being on stage is for me. That's starting to chip away. By the end of the shoot for Jose and the Hawk, I was a little bit relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep getting good feedback on that series, or that episode. So hopefully that'll continue improving my confidence level.
Cool. Yeah, I guess like when I say uncomfortable, just the thought of doing either to me would be super uncomfortable, just because I am someone who tends to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm assuming that's by choice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, totally. But I had it at the tip of my brain and I just lost it. No, it's interesting because like when you go on stage, you're out there. There's no, cut. Let's do this take again. You're just out there.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
But like with film, like you get multiple chances, perhaps. I mean, like at the risk of pissing off people. Yeah, but I can totally see how it would feel a little bit less natural, especially like with all the equipment involved.
Plus, the
It's
camera is like right there. So,
yeah.
usually with people, you have to on stage, you have to project both physically and vocally. You have to fill the room essentially. And with film, because the camera is so close and you can get in so close, you have to minimize. And I've yet to feel comfortable to the point where I could just do nothing and have that be the thing. I always feel like I have to look over there, and it's not just like glancing over there. It's like I have to like really bigly. Oh my God, look at that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's yet to become second nature to me.
Okay. Those are really all the questions I had.
Okay. Oh, just in time. Oh no, that's high crime. That's something else I wrote.
Bienvenidos a White Center.
Trying to find that.
White Center, which is also rapidly changing, by the way.
Yeah, I predicted that. I had written a post saying, your town, your neighborhood's going to shit the moment you have a yoga shop open up in your neighborhood. That's how you know your neighborhood's about to be gentrified. Sure enough.
Well, like a place to buy things or like a yoga studio?
Place to buy things.
Oh, okay.
Place to buy things, yeah.
Yeah.
I immediately got feedback. And I was like, no, that's not true. White Center will always be diverse.
Love wins.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'll probably get a lot of criticism for that. I don't care. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for chatting.
Absolutely.
Digging
Thank you.
into all these sweets with me.
Yes, indeed. You're gonna take one of these home, yeah?
Okay. All right. Sign off. Say something great.
Okay. I got a mouthful of. Okay. I love you.
I love you.
Okay.
And we love you too.
Aw.